hat. Representative Pelosi entering a salon without a face mask. Moronic Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler was turned against by far-left rioters in his own city, who smashed the windows of his condo building and tried to set it on fire. 355. Elvis Presley's Graceland mansion was defaced with profane, far-left slogans. 356. A Target employee was fired for posting a TikTok video of making a toxic bleach drink for a police officer. 357. A violent Wisconsin Antifa snowflake who carried smoke grenades and a flamethrower cried in a fetal position after being caught by police. 358. He had previously been charged with assaulting and pointing a firearm at a police officer. An unhinged woman in Boulder, Colorado allegedly punched a boy over a Trump sign. 359. BLM rioters in the D.C. swamp protested outside the home of Mayor Muriel Bowser in the middle of the night, threatening arson. 360. A teacher who attended the militant protest at the nation's capital screamed expletives at police officers. 361. The racist thugs also harassed and agitated non-white police officers present there with excessive expletives and even the N-word. 362. 363. 364. Indiana BLM rioter Denzel Drawn was charged with attacking police officers in San Diego with tear gas. 365. A Portland thug who previously was arrested for disrupting police at a riot was arrested over the stabbing murders of two people who resided in the same building he did. 366. A Florida woman with a possible mental illness was shot after stabbing a police officer. 367. 5 suspected members of the ruthless MS-13 gang were arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of a 16-year-old. 368. A San Francisco salon owner reported death threats after liberal hypocrite Nancy Pelosi, who repeatedly reminds others to wear face masks. 369, went to her salon without a mask, without permission, in violation of statewide lockdown orders, and doubled down by blaming the former, calling it all a setup and denying responsibility for her own actions. 370. The matter has been referred to as Salongate. BLM domestic terrorists in Rochester, New York stormed and vandalized restaurants, harassing diners there. 371. The racist militant thugs also started climbing onto people's houses. 372. And called for targeting white folks. 373. Local police declared a riot and deployed tear gas. Local families were further outraged to learn that among the mob was an assistant principal who screamed, "F the police." 374. In a comment on a blog to which he contributes, University of Rhode Island professor Eric Loomis wrote regarding Ria Noel's killing of the Patriot Prayer activist, "He killed a fascist. I see nothing wrong with it, at least from a moral perspective." 375. Denver BLM thugs harassed diners at restaurants and blocked cars in the street. 376. Their bullying of restaurant customers repeated for a second night. 377. At a BLM rally in Seattle, one thug singled out a black police officer to call by the N-word. 378. BLM terrorists in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania marched through the streets chanting, "Death to America." 379. A member of a BLM mob punched a security guard at a #walkaway rally in Dallas. 380. The thugs among the far-left group also threw bottles at Brandon Straka, stole his employee's cell phone and smashed it. 381. Leading up to the Biden putsch, Marxist insurrectionists laid siege to the White House. 382. 8 rioters in NYC have been charged for causing damage worth $100,000. 383. A moronic, peaceful protester in Portland attempted to lob a Molotov cocktail at police officers, hitting a fellow rioter instead. 384. An unhinged far-leftist attempted to kill a member of the Proud Boys following a memorial for Aaron Danielson. 385. Walkaway founder Brandon Straka was physically assaulted by Black Lives Matter terrorists and bigots who called him FGGT. 386. BLM mob violently attacked a walkaway rally in Dallas. 387. A retired teacher and Mark Kelly supporter in Glendale, Arizona is under investigation for threatening to shoot Republican Representative Paul Gosar in the head. 388. BLM thugs in Pittsburgh harassed a white couple, screaming, "F white people." 389. A mob from the group also stormed in a McDonald's restaurant and assaulted the black manager there. 390. Woke Portland thugs surrounded a black woman in an SUV and harassed her for trying to steer away from the mob. 391. Two far-left Minnesota extremists were arrested for attempting to conspire as assets for Hamas 392. They were falsely labeled by the lamestream media as far-right 393 despite their professed viewpoints lining up with leftism. Seattle Antifa terrorists were arrested for hurling rocks, bottles, and projectiles at police officers 394 after again showing up on the streets for violence. They paid the price of being pepper-sprayed 395. A racist Georgia thug who previously stabbed a man over needing to find a white male to kill, see here, murdered his white cellmate in a jail 396. Democrat riots in Compton, California, 2020 397. Far-left anarchists in Los Angeles harassed police officers with vulgar expletives 398. A BLM protester in Pittsfield, Massachusetts knocked out a Trump supporter in a fight 399. Antifa terrorists in Portland, Oregon brutally beat an independent journalist who infiltrated their violent mob 400. A South Carolina police chief was stabbed in the face with an ice pick by a man who knocked on his door 401. The legislative director for Oregon's Democrat State House Speaker was arrested at an Antifa riot in Portland, Oregon for interfering with a police officer 402. A moronic far-left BLM activist in Washington, Jeffrey Allen Acord, was arrested for arson 403 in 2014. Acord was arrested in Seattle during alleged protests in support of the Ferguson riots. Acord was carrying a loaded gun without a permit, an assault rifle, a shotgun, a box of ammunition, a box of large fireworks in his car, and a 7-inch knife in his backpack 404. Conservative gun rights activist Caitlin Bennett was harassed and cursed at by a far-left mob while interviewing people at the University of Central Florida 405. Despite MSM suppression by fake news sources that promote global warming-related hoaxes, a Portland dentist warned of Antifa setting fires 406. Unsurprisingly, 2 men were later arrested in the state for arson 407 in mid-September 2020. A woman in the state found an arsonist on her property and held him at gunpoint until police arrived 408. A medical license has been suspended for an abortionist who bragged about cutting the vocal cords of babies while murdering them to prevent screaming 409. A BLM mob in Washington, D.C. reappeared in the streets to harass people 410. A police officer in Rochester, New York was injured while trying to disperse violent BLM rioters who hurled projectiles 411. A reporter for The Blaze was also assaulted by the far-left thugs 412. 2 police sheriff deputies in Los Angeles were shot in an ambush and sustained critical injuries. BLM terrorists attempted to block them from being transported to the emergency room and cursed death wishes at them 413. Several malicious bystanders laughed at the deputies when they had been initially injured, refusing to help them 414. The Gravel Institute, founded in 2019 to carry on the life work of former Senator and 2020 Democrat primary presidential candidate Mike Gravel 415, reacted to the gunning down of 2 LA County Sheriff's officers by tweeting that blue lives don't matter because they are not a thing. 416 anti-cop protesters there had previously chanted, "Blue lives don't matter here." 417 An NPR hack who interfered with police officers paid the price of being arrested 418. A reporter in Georgetown was assaulted by BLM, peaceful protesters, for filming their mob 419. Peaceful protests erupted in Lancaster, Pennsylvania after a violent criminal 420 was fatally shot by local police. A BLM terrorist there called for police officers to be shot after they had fired rubber bullets at rioters 421. Nebraska bar owner Jake Gardner on the left and rioter/thug James Scurlock on the right. The latter was part of a mob invading Gardner's bar amidst violent protests following the death of George Floyd. Scurlock was fatally shot, and Gardner was subject to liberal attacks because he killed a black man. The far-left Daily Beast published a vicious smear attacking Gardner and those backing him after he committed suicide 422. A BLM mob marching through Charlotte chanted, "F your Jesus." 423. Left-wing domestic terrorists threw eggs at children who were part of a rally for Lauren Vitska, a Republican candidate for Senate in the 2020 elections from Delaware 424. BLM thugs in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania harassed white people dining at restaurants and blocked police officers 425.